Welcome to the Everyday Mom Challenge. Today I want to talk you through how to build text sets for any grade. I'll have an additional video in this series on how to use some online platforms, so stay tuned for those. So what are text sets? First, it's a way to build materials that encourage student interaction with the text at a deeper level. And the way that we layer text impacts the complexity of text. If you want to know more information on the qualitative, quantitative, and reader and task, I have to do a separate video just on explaining the three components of what makes a text complex. So there's no way 10 minutes can hit that, and my program only lasts my 10 minutes. But I will tell you that way that I start with building text is that I either take a short story that I'm going to be focusing on as my main text, or I take an informational text, an article that is extremely complex that I'm going to be focusing on, or a novel. So choose your main text first, and then you'll know how to build the threads to go around it to actually, build the tapestry of materials. So why should you create a text set anyway? Well, first, it is a student engagement piece. Research does show that students are more motivated when they're provided with scaffolded materials. It actually will help unlock any gaps they may have on the learning material or the topic, because it can help them to build background knowledge, which is critical to understanding complex text. You'll also be increasing vocabulary, increasing concepts as you go along, and you're not just surface hitting a topic and then moving on to a completely different topic. You're engaging students in an in-depth way, and you're taking them further into the topic, which will provide richer discussion, deeper connections, and it just gives time for students to live in that topic, which I feel like we often fail to do in education because we're so fast moving, and we can be fast moving through text sets too. So take a step back and really consider looking at how to build text sets and go for it. And I don't want you to think that text sets take the place of standards. Automatically, I'm telling you right now, the standard is what drives your instruction. So please understand that the instructional time that you're given to text sets doesn't take away from you mastering a particular standard in the standard course of study. It's actually like spiraling it all, working through it, and they're actually spending inside the text more time, which allows them to actually have that standard, concreted into their experience. So, equity is huge for me. And I will tell you this, especially working in the public schools, but also in homeschools, because my sixth grader has a different skill set and a knowledge base than my 11th grader. So if I'm providing, for example, article of the week that we're going to hold a debate on, I have to be very careful about, what is the background knowledge of both. So then I have to get them both on a playing field that's fair. Even though my 11th grader is still going to have, of course, an extended grasp of the information just because of his life experience and the more that he's read and things like that. However, if you're working with kids that are in the same grade, please understand that when you give a child one article and expect them to know everything under the sun about that topic, you're really closing doors. But when you build text set, you're unlocking the door that leads to the next door that really gets them feeling comfortable in that house. So people, talk also about rigor in education. And it's quick to pull things outside of a text, and just as long as it's fun, and we do this little fluffy stuff in a classroom, and it's quick for student engagement. But is it relevant? The text should be the most engaging on their own. And when they're not, we have to teach kids that wrestling with complex text and synthesizing multiple texts at once builds greater academic knowledge for them. So how do you create one? I want you to think outside the lines of literacy as just being printed materials. The longer the better. That's not true. Text sets should be varied in their length. Now, of course, when you get to your final piece, does it have to be 4 to 20 pages? No. I mean, you can choose a short story. You can have your novel. That can be your final piece that you're working with. But the thought that all of the material that you give your kids has to be front, back, crammed to the margins, that's just not the case. So I want to give you some things to consider while you're building your text sets. So first, let your students get involved with this. It will also help make sure that you have the pulse on what's in the now for them, the topics that they would like to learn more about. Have them to email you with a pitch or set them up on Google Classroom, a forum where they'll be able to post. You could also just do this as a project assignment, as a homework assignment. Pick one of these. Maybe a student can choose from the list and just pitch why it should be in the upcoming unit. Create a list. Now, trust me, there's a lot more than things to consider than what I've put up here. But don't rule out comics, infographics, videos with closed captioning. Make sure that when you are providing your students with materials, you are showing multiple perspectives of a topic because they need to see various points of view. You also need to ensure that you are choosing voices that cross cultures, be very inclusive in what you're doing and intentional. And also make sure it's quality material. Like, go through it and span it. Just because you pulled it and it has the same title doesn't mean it's quality. And definitely credible sources. Now, if you choose something that is fake news, please have your students deconstruct it for bias. But make sure that you do have your credible sources there. Include visuals, maps, graphics. Include that because each discipline, you have to learn how to be able to read that in science, in history, in technical fields, so in vocational education. So I encourage you to always include something of that nature inside your text set. So always ask yourself these questions and pose these to your students. Give your students the standard. That way they're able to kind of see how a teacher lesson plans. Give them the standard and really say to them, how can we take this standard and match it to this text or these materials that we're building? If you have any questions, I will definitely answer them. Please comment below. Literacy is my passion, people, and I love text sets. And maybe it's because, I was in my master's program at NC State, and I was constantly researching there. And you can go online and you can just Google text sets, how to build text sets, and you just won't believe the things that will come up. They will even give you sample text sets and how teachers have already built these things. But I took a class, and it was actually called Teaching Without Textbooks. And I had a phenomenal professor, and she really taught us the importance of building text work for students to increase their knowledge base. And you did not have to just live in a textbook. In fact, we were not even allowed to use textbooks. It was teaching without a textbook. We had to build our own text sets in the class and critique and evaluate, give feedback. It was such a great experience for me. in that master's level course, and I think that that really hooked me earlier on in my career. So even though now this is more of